Okay, weird. Yeah, that was super weird. Oh, you know what? I unmuted the wrong thing. That's why. Okay. Cool. Let me fix something really quick then. There we go, I guess. Okay. Cool. So, yeah, what's up? We're gonna I am trying to figure out the best way to solve this problem. It's not really a problem. It's just like it's not optimal. So if you have something like this is actually a perfect test case. It's not what you would normally want to do, but it's really helpful. Yeah, let me show a better better example here. So in my testing video in the hooks and suspense playlist on Egghead, I went through a little bit of trouble to figure out how to properly test components that use React hooks, because it's not entirely straightforward. So here, test effects generated from React using the effect hook. So what happens is you schedule the hook after a render, like every single render, it schedules a hook to be called. And then at a later time, that hook will actually be called. So if you want to make some assertions that that hook was in fact called, then you have to somehow schedule your assertions to be after that hook's effect. So here in our counter example, we have a hook that schedules, let me just blah, 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 blah. So yeah, we have this use effect that schedules local storage to be updated. Boo. Slow computers. Right here. So we say, hey, when you're all done rendering and all that stuff, schedule local storage to be updated with the count. Well, when I click on the button, it's going to re-render the counter because it's setting state, and then and then we can verify that the text content has indeed been updated and that the local storage was updated. But because the effect is scheduled for a later time, it's actually not updated synchronously, which is the whole big problem. Which is a great thing because like that's why hooks are better for performance and all that. But it is a problem for testing because we wind up in this situation where we say, hey, I expect the local storage to be updated after the user clicks on the button. And we get a failing test here because it's not updated. Not yet anyway. It will be updated eventually. And the weird thing is that if you try to await, so like if I were to put async here and then use await, and then React testing library re-exposes DOM testing library's utility called wait, which basically just let you wait till the next tick of the event loop. So if you do that, it actually still doesn't work. And if you were to say, hey, let's wait for 5 seconds, then that, well, your test will time out. You say wait for 3 seconds, then yeah, that will also not work because React is, I don't know exactly how that is all working, but for some reason, at least this is the way it behaves in Node with JS DOM. If you do that in the browser, it actually does work. But yeah, for some reason in Node, React is like, nope, I'm not going to update it yet because stuff is still going on, and for some reason it doesn't want to update. So, and even if that were to work, I don't like it. I think it would be really annoying to have to do awaits all over the place. For something where, like with class components, the way that it works is it synchronously runs all your component to update and stuff. So it would be nice if we could get that same sort of experience in our tests. But anyway, that's what I'm working on. I'm trying to figure out what we can do to make that experience better. Because what we have to do now is you can actually force React to synchronously re-render or run all of your effects by calling re-render. From React testing library, which will do a React DOM.render and we'll just re-render the counter. But actually, I learned that you can just do React DOM.render null to a random container, and that will work as well. So if we were just to call render null, then that will force React to re-render. So I was thinking, okay, so we have a mechanism by which we can force React to run all of the effects synchronously, run them all right away. Let's see if there is a better way to do that, because I don't want to have to re-render the component. That could do some other weird things. And from within React testing library, I want to make this just happen automatically, so you don't have to think about it. Anytime you do any interaction, it's just going to automatically do all this stuff. And so what Alex came up with here was good. What he does is, if flush effects is true, which defaults to true, then we'll just go ahead and render something to nothing. And that will trigger all the effects to rerun. But that only works on the first time you call render. If you're interacting with the component, then that won't work anymore, which I demonstrate here. If you comment this out, then that's going to fail the test. We need to make sure that we're rendering again. So we still need to somehow figure out a way to force the components to, or force React to run all the effects synchronously, if we want to be able to make this experience a little nicer. So I thought, okay, so we have some mechanism to run all the effects synchronously, but we have to run render, and yeah, the users of React testing library will still have to like call some function we expose called like flush effects or something like that. I want to avoid doing that, and so I started stepping through React's code to see what's going on here. So if you look at a stream from a month or two ago, I show how to set all this up with React, create React app. And so you can figure out how I'm stepping through in the debugger. But what I've got here is I've got that test, and I put a debugger here, and I also put a debugger in useEffect. And I have this render going on here, and I stepped through and I learned some interesting things, and that is actually the reason why I wanted to create this live stream today, is so that I could document what it is that I'm learning about the React scheduler and how effects are processed. So this is the magic function right here, flush passive effects. So what's going on here is it checks if the passive effect callback is null. Now, that passive effect callback is, thanks to rollup, it's at the root of our module here, and it's just passive effect callback equals null. That gets assigned to a value right here from scheduler, unstable schedule callback. So the scheduler is React scheduler, and actually it's kind of interesting. Let me pull this over, or I'll just paste this over here. So the scheduler is actually pretty minimal. It actually just uses secret internals, do not use or you'll be fired. And then it forwards all the arguments on, which is interesting because that is defined, that secret internals thing is defined, and like values are assigned to it in both React and React DOM. Takes a while to download JavaScript, apparently, especially when you're live streaming. Okay, so if we go secret internals, so we have this React shared internals, so we can look at that. We've got the current owner, we have a sign, yeah. So I don't see anywhere where the scheduler is coming from React, so I guess it's not coming from React. So let's see React DOM. Okay, we're getting that, and no, just accessing a couple properties on it. So I honestly have no idea where the scheduler is getting added. It seems kind of weird. And in React DOM, we get require scheduler. So we're actually getting the scheduler here. Then the scheduler is just kind of forwarding on all of these calls to the secret internals, but I don't know where the scheduler is getting added to the secret internals. So honestly, I don't know where these functions are being added, but we can find out probably if we go here. Let's go back here. I'm gonna put a breakpoint here. We'll play through, and now I can step into here. And that function is in scheduler development, which is much bigger than it is on unpackage what? Maybe it's the CGS one. Maybe UMD and CJS are different. Ah, indeed they are. Okay, so here it is. So yeah, we've got this cancel callback, which is what we're calling here. It takes a callback node, whatever that is, and cancels it from the schedule. So anyway, I haven't had a chance to look at this, but looks complicated because it's got a lot of ones and zeros and big numbers and stuff. But in any case, what I learned in the process of stepping through all this stuff is that, let's see, where are we? Render right here. Actually, going back. So when I say, hey, render that component again, then it goes through React testing library. This calls React DOM.render. That goes into React DOM. It does this legacy subtree thing. We create a root, update the container, blah, 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 blah. And then here's where things start to get interesting. We call, we call schedule root update. So when that happens, it says, oh, hey, we're going to be updating stuff. We don't want any effects hanging out in space that will be applied after this update because we're going to schedule new effects and those need to be applied later. So let's run all the effects that are scheduled right now. We'll just flush them all, make them all run right now, and then we can schedule like more or whatever, and those can run later. So that's why we're getting what we're looking for. So when we do this flush passive effects, what's going on is say, hey, if there are passive effects going on right now, if there's a scheduled passive effect callback, then we're going to say, hey, scheduler, I want you to cancel that callback, and then we'll call it ourselves just directly. So again, that passive effect callback is coming from, or let's see, that callback, where is that callback coming from? Commit passive effects. So we look at commit passive effects. What's going on here is it says, okay, let's get rid of the callback stuff now because we're going to run all this now. And we'll go through all of the effects and just run them directly. So if I go, here, let's run this again. Okay, so here we're in our effect. So it was called by something. Here we are in commit passive hook effects, which we'll call, let's see, no, go back. There we go. Commit passive effects, that's that function we were just in a second ago. So we're going to iterate through all the effects and call them. Now the way that it calls them is it uses this invoke guarded callback. I think this is only in development. It will call it directly in production. But the reason that it does it this way is it allows the developer tools, this pause on exceptions thing to work as you might expect. There's a whole big block of code that's dedicated to this. Let's see, right here. And they explain all this stuff, why they're doing this. But everything from here all the way to here is all just stuff to make DevTools better. Except it doesn't make it better when we're doing what we're doing just right now. But normally, like in real application development, that makes things a little bit better. So anyway, we're going to go from here to right here. And this is what's actually being called. And so we're going to commit hook effect list. We'll unmount passive. So I think that's like call the cleanup of the previous effects, maybe. I'm not sure actually what that is. But then we commit the effect list, no effect, mount passive, finished work. I don't know what those things are, to be honest. But then we're going to iterate through the effects and call each one of them directly. So anyway, to review, what's going on here is we, in our test right here, we're saying, hey, I clicked on a button that clicked on a button that caused a set count to increment. And so a set state was called, basically. And that caused a re-render of this, which caused a use effect callback to be registered and scheduled. And I want to verify that this effect was run, so local storage was updated or whatever else. I want to verify that right away. I don't want to have to wait for it to run. So I need to make sure that this function is called. And so there are various ways that I can do that. At the end of the day, all that I really need to have happen is I need this flush passive effects to be called, so that we call that passive effect callback immediately to immediately schedule all the effects. That's like the whole overarching picture. So if React exposed this function directly, then I would just call that function directly. But it doesn't, and so instead I have to call one of the functions that do call flush passive effects. And so we can do that with this render root, which I think happens when you, if I were to call render from React testing library and just render null, and that would like be a totally different route, whatever, but it's still going to flush my passive effects. I could also schedule root update, so that would be re-render on the same container with anything. It doesn't matter what I'm rendering it with, but on the same container. So if I render it with null, then my component's now going to get unmounted and stuff. So lots of side effects, no pun intended, that might happen from that. So that's also dangerous. So I probably wouldn't want to, I mean, I can do that, and that's actually what I do in my video where I show you how you might do this. Where is it? As I say, just re-render the counter again, just re-render it, and that will force all of this stuff to happen. But it's not optimal. I'm not super happy with that. So another one that does this is dispatch action. So this, I think this happens. Well, it looks like it has something to do with set state. So I guess I'm not sure exactly when. I thought dispatch action had something to do with events, user events. So maybe this is the code that's going on there. But yeah, we don't really want to do that either. So we're gonna skip that one. And in queue set state, so this is for class components. So in queue and replace and force update, so those three will also flush all passive effects. Now class components can't use effects, but if it's rendering any components that are using effects, then those will need to be flushed as well, which is why those are there. And then suspense also apparently will flush when, let's see. Yeah, I'm actually not sure what this code is doing. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm guessing it's I think this is where it's saying, hey, commit the life cycles of various components. So if the component that we're currently working on is a suspense component, then we want to flush effects, I guess. I'm not sure why. So yeah, that's all of the times that it's gonna call flush passive effects, which is what we need. So from the look of it, I think our best option is to render null, which will do this render root, because it will have hopefully minimal side effects on this work that we're doing, like in our own tree, and it will just render another tree, just render it in memory, yeah, and then we don't need to worry about it. So it basically amounts to what Alex is suggesting here, where we render it to some element that just exists in memory. It doesn't really matter. But we will have to, like, here's the crux of everything. We will have to expose a helper on here that is called flush effects. That will basically, it's just a function that does this. And that's kind of annoying. And I wonder if maybe there's another way to get around this. Somebody suggested using proxies somehow. I'm not sure how you do that. But another thing to consider maybe is, I don't know if we could, yeah, like maybe there's something we can do with the scheduler, change the scheduler or something. I don't know. Schedule callback, rapid callback, immediate priority. I don't know. Maybe we could do some mucking around with the scheduler, but I feel like that would be dangerous. So yeah, anyway, mostly questions on this one, not a whole lot of answers. Let me just see. Oh yeah, sorry about the font size. This is why I need to watch your comments. Hopefully I don't know what to say about that. Hopefully my words were helpful at least. Yeah, pretty small font now that I think about it. Normally I'm really good at this, but this is what happens when I'm just off the cuff doing stuff. So anyway, hopefully that was sort of interesting. It kind of helped me think through my process, and we'll see if we can figure out a nicer way to for you to test your stuff, because having to call this re-render, or we'll make a flush effects thing if we have to, but having to call flush effects after every user interaction or whatever would kind of be a downer. So yeah, we'll think about this a little bit so that your experience a little better. Most of the time this isn't a problem, but yeah, there are some cases when use effect you need to verify, or you need to verify that the side effects are running. Yeah, this will be a problem quite a bit, actually. All right, anyway, hopefully that's helpful and interesting and whatever. Sorry that the font size was super small and I didn't think about that. But yeah, I'm gonna take off. See ya.